as kind of the evolution and now, having the opportunity to focus more on the article writing and the involvement in Bloomberg. So what are some of the top 3 issues that you're kind of following in state and local tax?
Artificial intelligence,
That's a good one.
technology, and tariffs. Those are kind of the 3 things that I'm really looking at. I do a lot of speaking on ethics. So,
Okay.
15 years ago, I don't know how it happened. Actually, I think it was Cass Vickers. Do you remember Cass?
Yeah,
He was the executive director for
IPT. Yep.
and I had desperately wanted to speak at NYU, and I never got invited, and everybody always told me, "Oh, somebody has to die in order for you to
Right.
get invited," and I'm like, "Okay." But I knew Paul Frankel really well, and I'd hired him as outside counsel, a few times on cases at Kerr-McGee, actually, and then again, at, KPMG, to represent some of my clients as they'd gone forward, where we needed to hire an outside law firm. And so I knew him pretty well, and so, Cass said, "Well, I'm on the planning committee. I'll ask Uncle Paul and tell him that you wanna be on." And he goes, "And I'll give up my seat. I'll give up you know, my opportunity to speak if he'll let you speak." And so he pitched that, and I actually got on. He called me, he goes, "Well, good news, bad news." He goes, "Good news is you got on. Bad news is I'm co-speaking with you. The really bad news is that if you speak at NYU, you have to write an article for Matthew Bender, LexisNexis, that's publishable
Yeah.
within a few weeks after the, speech about your topic. You
Okay.
you have to write the article." He was like, "I'm not doing it. You're gonna do it, and we're gonna put my name on it." And I was like, "Okay."
Ooh,
Uh,
okay.
and that is true, that you're required to or expected to draft an article, and it's like writing a law review article or writing a
Yeah.
paper with, footnotes and certain formatting and, all of that stuff so that they put together this book, on the New York Institute of and every topic that's covered in the institute that year goes into a, LexisNexis Matthew Bender book. So, yeah, that kind of led me down that, primrose path to, start the writing, process and doing all the speaking.
Because you obviously enjoyed it, though, or you wouldn't have done it. Because a lot of people find it tedious and stressful and just might not wanna do it. So
Yeah,
you obviously have a propensity to enjoy it, so
yeah, no, I've always enjoyed it. So, that also, led me that was an ethics that was not an ethics topic, that was an alternative.
Oh, so that's how you got an ethics game.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so it started like that, and then I really enjoyed that, and I discovered that it's really not a lot of people think, "Oh, that's just a fluff
Right.
session, that's not really a technical session," but it actually is really
It
pretty
is.
technical and pretty important, and so, over the years, I've been following all the change technology rules, for instance, that have changed
Mhm.
within the ABA model rules and the
Mhm.
AICPA statements on standards for tax services. And now it's artificial intelligence, and there's
Yeah.
something changing all the time, and so I'm
Right.
following all of the new issues on AI and, what the courts are requiring and what the new, sort of, not new model rules, but new formal opinions that are coming out of the ABA, that are on AI. Formal Opinion 512 came out in January of 2024, and it's the first one that was really a lengthy, written, detailed, article, sort of, or opinion on requirements for members of the bar. And just in January of last year, the AICPA, updated its Statement on Standards for Tax Services, the SSTSs, and that includes some, nods to artificial intelligence. It really talks about the use of software, because think about it, if you're preparing tax returns, you're using a software,
Mhm. Yep.
and if you're going to be using some type of software, that's really a form of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And so they're starting to put criterion around what you can do and what you are required to do if you're going to use that, whether or not you're required to give notice to your client that you're using it, get permission that you're using it, how you're going to bill for it, all kinds of really interesting, issues. So, that I think is, going to stay with us. I'm doing actually a presentation tomorrow in New York for our client base on artificial intelligence. We've got 4 hours of continuing education we're giving to clients, and we have a partnership too with the New York Islanders, and so they have a event space in the Flatiron District. It's really great, and that they let us use. So we're gonna have a little session down there, and then go for a happy hour afterwards for clients. But the topic is ethics and artificial intelligence. Uh,
Interesting.
so that's kind of that, and so those 2 are really critical, but now what I'm really starting to watch is the tariffs, because there's something coming out on those all the time, every day. We
Mhm.
don't know really what's gonna happen, what's gonna stick and what's not, but what we need to know and need to be able to advise our clients, I think, is what does that mean for sales tax? What does that mean for income tax?
Mhm.
And what does that mean for property tax? 'Cause those
Hmm.
3 areas that are going to be the tariffs are going to impact greatly. I think 2 or 3 states have recently come out, I just read today, I think Illinois and can't remember the other state, have come out with some rules on what the taxability of tariffs, and
Yeah,
they've come down on the view that, from a sales tax perspective, it's part of the cost of the good.
that's correct. I
Mhm.
just actually provided that research to a client. It's
Did you?
absolutely taxable, even if it's separately
Yeah.
stated.
So
It's a mandatory cost.
yeah, so how are you gonna treat that? And
Yep.
for income tax purposes, is it part of the cost of goods sold? Can you deduct it? Is there some basis for figuring out how to minimize that cost from an income tax perspective? I think there could be a large
Okay.
argument for that.
Hmm.
Uh, so we're kind of looking at, you know, all of those, issues around the tariffs.
Well, and then when it from a sourcing perspective on it from an income tax, is it non-US revenue? Is it, imposed at the port from, like, your port of entry? Is it associated with do you allocate it based on the finished good of final delivery? Like,
Right.
how are you gonna 'cause if it's, revenue I mean, I guess it's a little kind of, from an inbound perspective of companies who are collecting on behalf of, the inbound goods, yeah, where are you putting it?
Yeah, what is the point of taxation? And what if it's a component part that goes into something? Where does that tariff lie? And who's responsible for it? So it's pretty complicated, I think.
Really complicated. I hadn't even thought of it that way. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, they haven't been imposed yet, so you're like, everybody keeps talking, like, all the big auto manufacturers, like, "We're taking a $2.5 billion write-off because that's how much money you think we're gonna lose in the
Our
next couple
clients are all
years."
our clients are all worried about it. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, they're all looking at it, and it could be a game changer for some of them.
yeah,
If they're imposed and they're taxable, uh,
yep,
it's gonna cause some big issues. So those are kind of the current things. There's always something new, you know? I mean, uh, that that's kind of where I'm thinking things are going right now.
yeah. Well, it's funny, Mare and I were presenting a Stratford presentation because we speak for them every once in a while, and, we're like, "How do we figure out, like, everything that happened?" Like, different CPA firms pull together information. So we went into, like, ChatGPT to say, "What are the recent tax cases in yada yada state?" Totally wrong, but gave us a foundation, which was also really interesting, like, completely wrong sites, wrong years, but it was something where I was like, "Oh, this resonates," right? Because, like, what are the tax cases? What are the legislation? Has it passed? Is it proposed? Is it gonna get any traction? So, we used it for just as a basis. Because how do you start?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
you
and
just can't start.
I think that's good. I think,
Yeah,
the fact is that you follow the rules unwittingly, maybe by reviewing it and making sure that you knew
right?
the output that you got was not
Correct.
right. That
Yeah.
that was a good starting point for you.
Yes.
That's why a lot of law firms I always thought an LLM was a master's in, tax law, but it's a large learning model. That's the new LLM, a large learning model, and that's within the AI kind of thought processes that law firms and accounting firms, every firm starting to create their own LLM so that they have
Yeah,
a closed rather than, ChatGPT
right.
is open system.
Yes.
So the LLMs are closed, and you
Yes.
can, control what goes into it, control how the system learns, allegedly and hopefully protect client confidentiality
Right.
by keeping it in that fashion. I think there's just so much, going on with that, the use of artificial intelligence that's going to
Yeah.
be used. And so the question is, how do we harness that use productively? And I think, it's moving so fast. It's one of the things that keeps it interesting, even from an
Mhm.
ethical perspective, is that,
Yes.
I'm sure you're aware of the Yabianca case that came out 2 years ago in the Southern District of New York.
I don't remember. No.
Do you know that case? It was, a law firm. There was a lawsuit, that had taken place, and the lawyer, uh, wrote the brief, prepared.
Oh, right, out of
Mhm.
ChatGPT. I didn't remember the name of the case, of course, because I don't
Yeah,
remember music or any case law,
yeah,
the names, but I remember the
yeah,
concept.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and then, the mistake that they made was that whenever they were called on it, when after ChatGPT hallucinated and created these 3 cases that were exactly on point, the lawyer and the judge asked for them, and instead of going and checking to see that they weren't real, the lawyer just asked ChatGPT to spit out the cases, which it did, and he turned them in to the judge, and, they were not amused when they figured out what was going on. So, that was the first case where lawyers were called before the judge for a sanction hearing. They were not disbarred or even, suspended. He gave them kind of a slap on the wrist and fined them $5,000 each and said, "Don't do it again," but their reputations were tarnished and ruined as a result of that fact. And so now there are cases going out. I've got another one in a scenario I'm doing tomorrow, actually, where, it was a criminal case, a criminal tax case, and the, attorney had her paralegal write the closing argument, write
Okay.
the brief for the closing argument, and then the attorney didn't review it, presented it in court. The defendant lost on all 10 counts, and, it came to light that the attorney had a financial interest in the experimental AI tool that they used to create the closing argument, and the closing argument was left out some key cases and sort of didn't, cover the right areas to protect the client. And so this is probably gonna be the first case where there's on the defendant's appealed, and they'll probably get a new trial, and it's kind of a case of first impression where that artificial intelligence was used to draft a closing agreement that caused a mistrial. So this will be a good one to follow. Uh, but they're all over the place, so
It is exhausting, though.
Kind of over your career, how have you seen state and local tax evolve? Or not, right?
well,
Depending on depending on some of the laws that we're reading and trying to interpret it as to modern day, you know,
that's a ver
technological
that's a
evolution.
very good question. I think, I would look at it not only from the perspective of how has it evolved from an actual, technical issue perspective, but how has it evolved from a viewpoint from others, as they look at state and local tax. When I started, every focus was on the federal tax return. When you did compliance, you focused on the federal tax return, and at the very end, you left 15 minutes to do all the state returns.
Right?
Right?
Totally.
And you would
Yep.
just plug in all these things into the system, and you put them in, if there were overrides, whatever. And I think what I'm trying to say is that people did not pay attention to, state and local tax. Companies did not pay attention to it. It was a
Mhm.
small fraction of what they
Yep.
paid from a federal tax perspective, and
Right.
just sort of a nuisance to everybody. And I
Yes.
think people who were starting to go into that when I started, there was not really a lot of state and local tax experts. There were
No.
people who worked for state agencies,
Mhm.
like all the tax commissions that did state tax, but they were the tax commission. They were unique to that group. There weren't big groups of people in companies or in consulting firms or Big 4 public accounting firms that just did state and local tax.
Mhm.
They would oftentimes even pull in the international tax people to do the state returns. The federal people are too busy, we're doing the federal returns, let's pull the
Yeah.
national tax associates over to come and do the state returns because they're
Yeah.
kind of like foreign countries, which you said earlier, Judy. So I think that over my career, I've watched that evolve into the point where state and local is becoming as important or more important than federal.
Mhm.
People
Yeah.
are really focused on the nuances of the laws, and how can they structure their business so that they are uh, functioning at the right level to pay
Right.
the correct amount of tax and the least
Mhm.
tax that's due
Correct.
in that jurisdiction. So I think, that that has been an evolution that I've witnessed. We've got credibility.
Yeah.
We still fight for it in some instances.
Yeah.
As we wrap, maybe a way to as a selling point for those who are not maybe entering the CPA profession or whatever or whatnot, but maybe for those considering a career in state tax or, accounting or whatever in general, like what advice would you have or how would you sell it? Or kind of what any last minute thoughts that you have that, we haven't talked about that you would wanna share with, our listeners?
That's I think that what I would say is that no matter what career you choose, you have to be passionate about it and
Mhm.
really love it. And that there's a lot of opportunity in state and local tax, and there's a lot of camaraderie within the community.
That's true.
And so that, a lot of businesses and professions you go into, you can be very successful professionally, but you don't come away with a lot of friends or,
Whoa.
an infrastructure within your life that is as a result of your professional career. And I think that in state and local, from my experience, it has been that way. You
True. I hadn't thought of it that way, but you are so right.
you start networking, you
Yeah.
start meeting people, then they become more than just a colleague or more than just an auditor. I
Yeah.
like to use that example I mentioned earlier. My California auditor, Lisa Elliott, I remember telling my assistant at Kerr-McGee, she's California auditor. She's on Louisiana Street in Texas, and always confused by. She was like, "What state is it from? Who is she from?" She came. She got pregnant with her son during our first audit cycle, had that child. Second audit cycle, twins. The girls, they are out of college, graduated. One's a nuclear physicist. And I've stayed in touch with her, recognized birthdays. Her husband was a big wig at the California Franchise Tax Board too. So it was always helpful to me throughout my career. If I had any issues in California, I could call Lisa or Richard. If Lisa didn't know, Richard knew or knew who to contact. And
Mhm.
so I think that, there aren't a lot of professions and a lot of types of professional careers where you can develop that kind of a relationship that will stay with you for 30 years
Yeah.
and help you uh,
Right. Right.
through your career.
That's true. There's really not a lot of competition. There's way too many clients and too many issues.
Yep,
There's plenty of work for all of us. And you're talking international and national. Like a lot of people
yeah.
aren't self-Americans.
Right. Right, right. So that's what I think I would say. I would say that, yeah, if you wanna be an accountant, you wanna be a lawyer, the state and local areas is a certain specialty that you should consider, to have a focus of. And if you like it, I mean, a lot of times, federal taxes, they change, but a lot of stuff stays the same,
Right.
all the time, and things always change. In
Right. Yes. I
uh,
think it's more creative is what I kinda because
yeah,
I was federal at first and I'm like, "All right, I got everyone memorizes the code provisions," you know? So I'm
right,
like, "Okay," and then I go look up something, I'm like, "Oh, there's a letter ruling on it," because it's like 300,000,000 Americans, so it's probably addressed somewhere. So I'm like, "Well, I'm not really get to be on the curve, like, I can go find the answer." And I was like, "Why did I go to law school just to be so perfunctory, I guess, for me?"
yeah,
And then the
right,
salt thing kinda fell in my lap too, and I'm like, "Ooh, this is very creative."
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know. The rule says this, but this is what's happening. I'm not so sure that applies.
yeah. Yeah, and you get to do it too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's been fun
Yeah.
for me is that, I've actually gotten to do so many hearings and actually handle
Right.
so many cases. Some of them, have gone to the Supreme Court of that state,
Oh,
through
fun.
issues. I mean, at Kerr-McGee, I'll leave you on that note. That was, we had the oil company, probably a non-unitary segment was sodium chlorate plants in Mississippi, which sodium
Okay.
chlorate is the pigment that makes paint white. So we had these sodium chlorate plants in Mississippi, and there was a question about whether or not in order to create the pigment, you have to include electricity goes into the compound. And so we were deducting the electricity, we're saying the cost of the electricity was exempt because
Okay. Right.
catalyst.
Manufacturing exemption or whatever.
So that
Okay.
was the issue. So I found myself talking with chemists and trying to explain to a Mississippi administrative law judge what the catalyst was that created sodium chlorate and why it should be exempt from tax. So that was like one interesting issue, that went to the Mississippi Supreme Court and we won. So
It's
you know,
awesome.
they're
No,
fun.
it's true, the definition of things and
Yeah,
expanding it or detracting it. I think that is awesome, and it is true, one thing I've noticed, and Mary, I think, has too, like, we're on site, we're taking tours, we learn the company, we see everything they have because, use tax, and
yeah,
where's your presence, where are your employees, what are they doing in each state, what's the type of business you run? And so we have to put all that together to kind of build the platform of, like, what you need to do and where and why. So that is super fascinating. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
That's so true.
Well, yeah,
Oh, yay. All
Well,
right.
and Glenn,
Anything?
I love that that's where you ended because we have, for those who continue to follow and keep listening is, at the central theme of where we're at, how we're here, how the three of us are speaking right now, how this thing even started is, relationships at its fundamental core and how, just it'd be impossible to do this without, the help and the friendship of everyone else that's doing it along with us. And so, thank you for ending this episode with that. Thank you for your friendship. And I look forward to seeing you in Florida in June at the IPT annual
I
conference.
Yeah.
will be there. Thank you.
Yeah.
You better look me up, and we'll definitely grab a cup of coffee or a drink, whichever.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. And so that is another episode of Saltivation. Till next time.